Get ready for the big revival. The real estate revival, that is. Now on 77 WABC, your New York weekend.
Get ready for the big revival.
It's Rand on Real Estate with Greg Rand.
Welcome back to Rand on Real Estate. I'm your host, Greg Rand, on 77 WABC. You know this show is all about entrepreneurship, recession be darned, and real estate, and how to use real estate to secure your financial future, and how to just push back against all the negativity out there. So I have in the studio today, I'm actually in his studio today, really the top entrepreneur in real estate in America. He is the co-founder of Remax Real Estate. He's got, well, we'll talk about his company in a minute. Let me just welcome Dave Liniger. How are you, Dave?
Doing great. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks for being here. So, okay. We just got finished in the first segment doing what is really my favorite segment of the show. It's called Smart People Saying Dopey Things About Real Estate. Not talking about you, talking about the people that I played the clips of and talked about, because there's a whole slew of new research that's come out recently. You know, we know the home ownership rate is coming down, okay? Less people are owning homes. We know the reasons for that are, you know, harder mortgages to get, a tough economy, unemployment's kind of high, and we know that there are more people that are renting. But the geniuses out there who, they're housing experts because they live in one. That's where they get this from. They live under a roof. They think they're a housing expert. Their read of that trend is, well, you know, people in the younger generation don't want to own homes anymore.
Well, you know, you talk to a 20-year-old that says, I'm never going to own a house. Lots of us said lots of things at age 20 that we don't say again 30 or 40 or 50.
True.
And in reality is everybody's seen the downturn. And many people bought houses 10 years ago. They said, house prices are going up so fast, I got to buy one and get rich.
Right.
That isn't why people buy houses. You buy houses, place to live, place that you don't have a landlord telling you what you have to do, or you can't put up a photograph, or you can't do something on the wall. Young people are no different than anybody else, except for they're smarter, better educated, getting married later, and they're having children later. That doesn't mean they're not going to fall in love and have children. And it's just they're putting it off later. They're a little bit smarter than some of us were 50 years ago. So the end result is what they say today at age 21, downtown in a loft where they are close to the action, the sports venues,
Yeah, I have
the
to be able
bars.
to walk out and crawl home.
That's right. And that's what they say today. But at age 27 with 2 children, they're going to want suburban area. They want a yard. They want close to church to school, and raise their family. And they're putting off a while, but it is not over.
It's not over because it's wired, and it's funny you mentioned this. I just had a flashback to when I was 20. I was this close, and I mean this close, to getting a tattoo of a Roadrunner because I happen to be a big fan of the Plymouth Roadrunner. So to me, I was sure that I was never going to get tired of that, and I ended up not doing it. I look back now, and I'm kind of glad. So yeah, I guess you do change after you hit 30 and 35 and have kids. But what do you think? I mean, what's the impact? You know, when I didn't meet you back in the mid-'90s, but my first exposure to you was at a convention of the National Association of Realtors. And that was back when .com was changing everything. And all the travel agencies were done, and we were next, right? Real estate companies were going to be disintermediated. That was the buzzword. We were going to be replaced by the internet. And you got ticked off about that, and you made a speech that kind of shook the foundations. And a lot of us out in the audience just fell in love, said, okay, you know, a champion who's willing to bear some fangs and fight back against that kind of nonsense. And obviously, you know, 15 years later, here we are, here you are. The industry is still very, very well intact. But we kind of have a new crop of, I don't want to call them enemies, because I don't think they think of themselves that way, but they're doing harm. And that is people who are trying to help the housing crisis, but making mistakes in Washington. So government where, you know, one day they're doing something good, like helping people refinance homes, and the next day they want to take away the mortgage interest deduction to make it more expensive to actually have a mortgage. How do you push back, being one of the guys who's in charge of the biggest real estate company in the country, the world? How do you push back against that?
Well, 15 years ago when that speech happened, you have to understand people who sell technology are selling their dream. Anytime you sell a product, you're trying to sell the advantages you see of the product, and they thought real estate's just like an airline ticket or a book you buy from Amazon.com. It is not. Purchasing a property is a very complex transaction. It isn't something you can just go touch one button, charge it to your credit card. Far more complex. And I saw that at the time and said, no, technology is a tool. Right. Now, one of the things that was interesting was they said people can look at houses on the internet. They didn't understand. They always wanted to look at houses. Right. I can remember 40 years ago having an MLS book, and the MLS book said, private confidential information. Do not give this out. Okay? And yet, every realtor would hand the book to their client from the last week and say, this is sort of like a Sears catalog. Leaf through it, see what you kind of like.
Don't tell anybody.
It'll give you an idea, and then come back and show me what you're interested. I've got the key, and I'll get you in the houses and show you the latest listings.
So the internet was essentially a replacement of that book that you gave out, and obviously it worked. They're the most popular websites in the world. I mean, Remax.com, the kind of traffic that you all get, and the kind of volume of sales opportunities that are created there is second to none in the industry. And it leads me to the question about the international site. Global.remax.com just launched a couple of months ago. What do we have there? We've got it in dozens of countries, dozens of languages. You're basically able to shop real estate globally now?
The world is shrinking, and there's tremendous amount of movement of money from country to country, even in residential resort properties. And so we have global.remax.com. It is worldwide, 60 countries, 30 languages. And the beauty of it is you can look at properties in another country in your language. So if you want to translate it to Spanish, it will give you the Spanish language. It will give you the unit of currency you want to look at it in.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And so it gives you the ability, and again, it's sort of just like one of these beautiful magazines, only much better than a magazine, and you can see properties all over the world.
I'll tell you, I was on it playing around. That's really what it's like. I mean, when a real estate website is a toy. If you're not in the market, it's still a toy. That's why there's so much traffic of people that are enthusiasts. And I'm looking at houses in Sydney, Australia, in Prague, in the Czech Republic. And what was cool about it is that more than any other thing that I could be looking at on the web and reading, I got a feel for those places better than I've ever gotten. You know, look at the travel and tourism websites, and you can get something out of that. But when you actually see the way that people live, where they live, the kind of architecture, it's really cool. So I commend you guys on doing that, because I think it's going to pull money into the U.S. It's going to tie together these countries. And you know what? We have to go to break, but if I can hang on to you for the next segment, because this is going to have a lot more questions. So stick around. You're listening to Rand on Real Estate on 77 WABC. We've got Dave Liniger, the chairman and co-founder of Remax. Be back in a minute.
It's Rand on Real Estate with Greg Rand.